Sorry, I was muted there and I didn't realize. Technology. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this award webinar on leading in times of crisis. I have noticed that we've been populating the chat. Thank you very much, saying hello to each other. Let's keep that going throughout. Welcome again. I would like us to start by taking a poll that will help us as we go along this webinar. So please take a minute. We kindly request that you take a minute. In fact, it will probably be less than a minute. And just submit your feedback on the poll. Thank you. And even as that is going on, I would like us to start off by welcoming the Director of Award, Dr. Wanjiru Kamau Rutenberg, to start us off in this exciting journey of the webinar today. Dr. Wanjiru Rutenberg, please, welcome.
Hello, everybody. It is so exciting that we are here again on the second of what is a series of seminars by award, really exploring and growing our leadership craft. I just want to welcome each and every one of you. Thank you for gracing us with the gift of your time and attention for the next hour and a half. And I want to particularly recognize Pamela. Thank you so much, Pamela, for agreeing to moderate this session. I want to recognize each and every one of our special speakers. And as we, and just welcome you to speak to us as we try and glean from your wisdom. And just a quick sentence about award. We at Award African Women in Agricultural Research and Development are really passionate about leadership, about building the pipeline, strengthening the pipeline of leadership, especially for agricultural research on the continent, but really a broader conversation about leadership and how do we as Africans step up and bring our best selves to really help our smallholder farmers, especially on the continent, be able to feed us and to feed us in a way that doesn't ensure their poverty. And so in important ways, this conversation about leading through times of change is part of that commitment to making sure that we're strengthening, we're working alongside you who are then directly working with our farmers and with our communities. So this webinar series is very much part of our service to you in that direction. So I'm going to stop there and hand back over to Pamela. Pamela, once again, thank you. And to each and every one of our speakers, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rutenberg. Always a pleasure to hear from you. Thank you for setting the context. And as you've heard, my name is Pamela Yoga Yeke. I'm from Kenya. I'm one of the award trainers on the leadership, mentoring, and negotiation skills. And I'm also sitting here as a leadership consultant, an executive coach, a trainer, and a facilitator in my own right. And I will be your moderator for today. So without much further ado, I will introduce our speakers. And I trust that we are still taking the poll, which we will look at before our speakers start. And so I would like to just share my screen to introduce our speakers. Sorry about that. All right, so there we are. For some reason, my screen is not moving. Some of this technology, just give me a minute and I will be on it. I only have one speaker showing up, and I'm beginning to wonder. Just bear with me. I need to just fix something very fast, and I will be introducing our speakers. I'm sure you saw some of their profiles already online. And this will just be a brief introduction. Or rather, reintroduction of them. So I always say that when technology fails, it doesn't mean that we have failed. So what I am going to do is I'm just going to introduce them by word. I'll say our main speaker today is Dr. Wale Akinyemi. Dr. Wale is from Nigeria. He's a leadership and organizational culture and transformation expert consultant for the United Nations, the Fortune 500 companies, governments, and organizations around the world. Dr. Wale also runs a lot of, what do you call them, motivational talks. And if you've been privy to following him like I have, he has some power talks online that I've been following. He's written over about 18 books. One of my all-time favorites is Help Me, Who Moved My Cheese? Help me, my cheese is melting. Sorry, help me, my cheese is melting. My chocolate is melting. So he's going to be our main speaker today. Then we have Dr. Toure from IDRC. She is the Regional Office for Sub-Saharan Africa Director right now. And she is going to be one of the panelists also. Then we have Professor Diallo. She's the Vice President in charge of Planning, Programming, and External Relations at UNA in Cote d'Ivoire. And then our very own Benjamin Kamoye. I say our very own because he's one of the award trainers in the leadership series. He trains in the leadership courses. And he will be with us today as a speaker. He's a certified leadership speaker, trainer, and coach, CEO of Bite Size Learning. So with that, I'd like us to see the results of the poll. And once, if my PowerPoint comes up, I'll be able to show you more about the speakers. I trust that we've been able to take the poll. And I'm just waiting on the results of the poll that will be shared in a bit by Gibson. We had 2 questions on the poll that came up. My leadership role has become more complex during the COVID-19 pandemic, and I have had to adapt some new leadership skills to cope with complexity during this pandemic. Let's wait and see as the poll results come up, what our results are saying, as we look forward to this webinar and see how we can find ways of managing during these complexities. Gibson? Meanwhile, I would encourage our attendees kindly. Thank you very much. I would encourage our attendees kindly keep chatting even as we talk about complexities. Please keep chatting and telling us specific areas where you are experiencing complexities. So there are our results. Yes, 86% of you are saying that your leadership role has become more complex during this COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you. And we have 95% are saying that you've had to adapt some new leadership skills to cope with the complexities during this pandemic. Wow. So definitely this webinar is going to be very germane for all of us. And just to set a context before I invite Dr. Wale, the modern times that we are living in is becoming very complex, actually has become very complex, especially with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. And a lot of organizations, leaders are finding themselves really striving in different ways just to make things work out. So you find that we are dealing with complexities in terms of management, in terms of people management, what my staff, what do I do in terms of even just food security for organizations that are dealing with that. And even on at the grassroots level, we are having a lot of those challenges going on, from navigating economic uncertainty, navigating food security, like I've said, health issues, how do I ensure that my staff remain healthy? How do I ensure that the work continues even as we are careful during this time? So this and other issues make this webinar very relevant. So without much further ado, let's delve into it. I will welcome Dr. Wale, who will start us off and take us through the first presentation. Dr. Wale, you are welcome.
Thank you very much indeed. It's such a privilege to be here, and thank you for the opportunity. Like you heard, my name is Wale and originally from Nigeria. And one of the things that I have been very privileged to do in my life is, my background is in research, demography and social statistics. And then I got into consulting and leadership and all that. But I've had the privilege of working with a wide variety of organizations over the last many years. So I have worked with people in the development sector. I've worked extensively, in the past with the United Nations and go. I've worked with different governments, but at the same time, I've worked with companies that are, very high, fast-paced, high-energy organizations. And I have found out, so that has put me in a very unique position in that I'm able to look at the leadership issues across board. And one of the things that I have found out, even during this period, has been, there's been a marked difference between organizations that just took this pandemic as a health issue. You see, some took this as it's just a health issue, or it's a public health thing and all that. But some took it as a declaration of war. And I think there was a major difference. So one of the things I saw is that when you take something like this, people who took it as a declaration of war, this is a war on my lifestyle, this is a war on the continuous existence of my organization, this is a war on life as I know it, there is a difference in the way we approach it. If we just look at it as, well, it is just a public health thing and all that, we are likely to wait for the health experts to help us out. But when we see it as a declaration of war on our lives as individuals, as organizations and all that, then the response becomes different. One of the things that we will discover is that old methods for dealing with a lot of the things we have been used to, a lot of old methods have been made redundant by this situation. Now, that means we are not going to, there are a lot of things we did, a lot of things that last year would have been best practices. You suddenly find out that this year or during this period, we can't use them anymore. They're no more relevant. And when you adopt a wartime mentality, it helps you so you don't get attached emotionally to methods that worked before. Because during war, decisions are made on the go. During war, unfortunately, we cannot benchmark wars because no war is the same, you know. So what does that mean? We accept the fact that old methods, a lot of our old methods have been rendered redundant by this war. Then we now have to shift from an idealistic position to a more pragmatic position. And we saw that organizations that were able to make that shift were able to move forward during this period. Now, idealism says, this is how we will do it, this is how we have done it, and this is how it ought to be. But the pragmatic perspective says, all right, we do know that this is how it's supposed to be. But under these conditions, this is how it will work. And just that little shift from the idealistic to the pragmatic has kept a lot of organizations in business. All right. Another thing we need to look at is that at a time like this, I saw a quote once that really got me excited, that wars are fought by soldiers, but they are won by thinkers. So at this point, you know, we need to build a network of thinkers representing every stakeholder. All right, we need to build that network of thinkers. I give you an example. Because of the nature of our work as consultants, our work basically, we interact with people. We are either in a boardroom or in a strategy session. So it's been, I mean, our work is interactive. We're doing surveys, we're doing all that. Now, this situation came and we realized we cannot continue like we have been doing. So what did we do? We built a network of thinkers. We had sessions with all our stakeholders, the HR people, the CEO, senior management. We had all sorts of meetings to say, okay, guys, this is what we propose, how we propose to serve you. How can we serve you better under these conditions? So a coalition of thinkers is very, very important. And then I think the final point I would like to put is warlike or wartime execution. You know, many times I have learned that we've attended many conferences, we've attended many seminars, many webinars and all that, and a lot of ideas have come forth. And my discovery is that for a lot of us, it's not that we don't know what to do, but it's that we don't do what we know. So it's very important. A military guy who knows what to do, who does not execute, will be destroyed. So swift execution, and that's why you need the coalition of thinkers. So swift execution, you know, it's very important. I will round up by saying that, you know, Darwin was right. He said, it is not the most brilliant, the most intelligent that survive. It is not the strongest, but the most adaptable to change. One of my very, very first boss, I worked at an Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, and my boss was a general in the army. And he said something that I would never forget. He said, Wale, you know, in the business world and out there, if your strategy does not work, you go back to the drawing board. But in the military, if your strategy does not work, you come back in a body bag, you're dead. And for me, that really helped me all my life, and with all my clients. It's, we must adopt a military-like strategy when it comes to execution, when it comes to thinking and all that. And when we do that, then you find out that just like wars are fought on the go, we will execute whatever it is, our mandate is, on the go, and we are not tied to old idealistic models. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wale. That was really insightful. That was awesome. And one thing I love about Dr. Wale is his passion for Africa. You can see his footprint across Africa. He believes in transforming Africa one mind at a time. And even as you're listening to him today, he is really delving into the mindset, you know, just talking about being swift in execution, being able to adapt to change swiftly. And, you know, some of those quotes, especially the one from Darwin, that who is going to survive? The ones who are adaptable. Thank you very much once again. And next, I'd like to welcome Dr. Kathryn Toure to give us a short presentation on the same, on leadership. Welcome, Dr. Toure.
Bonjour tout le monde, je suis très contente d'être ici et je reconnais tous les collègues de cette partie du continent et aussi tous les collègues de l'Afrique de l'Ouest et du Centre. Because I'm coming from Canada's International Development Research Centre, as you know, we're bilingual in Canada, so always like to get a little bit of French in there. So I'm already inspired. And I hope to continue with this inspiring and being inspired. So I wanted to mention 4 things about leadership at these times. First of all, that all of us have seeds of leadership planted in us. So knowing that, my 2 questions are, how do we nourish those seeds of leadership within each one of us and in our colleagues? Within each one of us, maybe in the beginning we observe other leaders that we admire. Maybe we go to a formal leadership training. Maybe we read books about leaders that we admire, and maybe we try to be around leaders where we'd like to imbibe some of their characteristics and qualities. Or we seek mentorship, or we hire a professional coach. But as leaders, it's not just about us leading. It's about liberating the leadership potential within our colleagues and giving them the space to step up and to lead in their areas. So how do we nourish that leadership in others? Do we give them stretch assignments? Do we encourage them to get a mentor? Do we mentor them? Do we suggest they get a coach? So these are just questions that I'm putting on the table for you as leaders. How do you nourish the seed of leadership within yourself continually and in those around you? Second point, at IDRC, we now have a leadership charter. And I was on the committee that helped to put the leadership charter together. We adopted it in 2019. So we drafted it, but then we workshopped it throughout the organization. And the idea behind the leadership charter is that there's formal and informal leadership. So you don't have to be a president or a director or a team leader to be a leader. Those are the formal positions. The idea at IDRC is that everyone is a leader in their area, and we expect them to lead in their area. So the leadership charter reminds us of the behaviors that we expect to see so that we can encourage each other to bring out our very best leadership potential. And it's done through many things, for example, through peer learning and creating a culture of peer learning. within, for example, an organization. My third point is about leadership training. So I've asked many, in particular women colleagues, they've come back from leadership training. So I say, what did you learn? And I expect them to rattle off all the technical skills about leadership. I learned about vision. Oh, I learned about emotional intelligence. Oh, I learned about strategic thinking. Or I learned to inspire and to mobilize, or to plan, or whatever it might be, you know, the stuff that we get out of the textbook. What did they say? They say, Kathryn, I learned that I need to bring myself to the table. So I said, wow, that's to realize how often as leaders we leave ourselves outside the room, or we bring 25% of ourselves to the task at hand, when to achieve ambitious goals, we're in a leadership position because we have something to bring. So it's liberating ourselves to bring ourselves to the task at hand. And a fourth point I wanted to mention 2 sources of inspiration for me, but I have a list of others if it comes up in the questions later. Who has inspired me? One person is Grace Lee Boggs. This is her autobiography, which is called Living for Change. I studied education, so I came across a quote about her related to education. And this led me to her biography. She's from Detroit, Michigan, and she was a pioneer in the 1970s, right after the Civil Rights Movement, in community gardening in food deserts in Detroit, which has led to the current movement of community gardening, saying that if we can connect better with our environment, we're going to be healthier. So she, as a leader, says that we need to draw people outside the paradigm in which they are trapped. So what are the paradigms in which we are trapped today? Why has COVID hit us, and certain communities in particular, so hard? So as leaders, how can we help draw people outside the paradigms in which we are trapped, so that we can do what some people are asking us to do, which is to build back better and differently? And finally, the other person who inspires me is my father. Dad used to always talk about the contribution of women in his family to community. And then he would watch TV, or he would read the paper, and he would say, oh, look, here's a world leader. She's a woman. Here's what she's doing. And we need more women leaders in the world. He was born in 1928. I can't ask him because he died, may his soul rest in peace, but I still keep wondering, how did he know? And why did he think we needed more women leaders in the world? I don't know, but what I know is that the way he acted in the family encouraged both his daughters and his sons to have confidence and to be able to tap into those feminine powers and within ourselves. Because I do think that the times that we're living in right now are calling on all of us to tap into certain feminine powers that we have within us. So I conclude by inviting all of us and the men in the room to be feminist fathers and uncles and leaders, because I think that the times are calling for it. We know that it's hard for women to publish right now. We have the statistics showing that we have fewer women publishing. What is that going to mean in our thinking going forward? Are we going to be unbalanced? So in our families, what can we do to reorganize how we organize things in the household, so that we have balanced participation in decision-making spaces in society? Thanks so much, colleagues. So happy to be here in this important discussion about leadership with very inspiring people from Award. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Dr. Toure. Great to hear that French. We welcome our French-speaking colleagues. And thank you so much. I love the idea of nurturing our leadership, the idea of encouraging, liberating the leadership potential of others. I mean, what you've shared is so reach. And the whole idea of feminine leadership, you know, it's an emerging way of leadership that is proving to be very effective. So thank you so much for bringing all those up and many more. I am noticing that we are keeping the chat going, and that is great. So I know somebody asked for Dr. Toure to share the title of the book again. I'm sure she's going to put it on the chat again for you, whoever needs it. And we also welcome you to ask questions in the Q&A section, because we are going to be looking at them in a bit. So let's keep the chats going, let's keep the questions coming, and let's keep leaning into this conversation and the discussions that are emerging. And with that, I'd like to welcome the very accomplished Professor Diallo from Côte d'Ivoire. Welcome, Prof.
Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Greetings from Abidjan. I would like to first start by saying that I'm very thrilled and honored to be joining you during this panel discussion. I would like to thank Edward for inviting me to be one of you. Before I start, let me say a few words about my institution. I'm the Vice President in charge of planning, programming, and external relations at the University Nangua in Abidjan. We are a French-speaking country. I need to mention that just in case. So, in my institution, we have about 9,000 students, 300 lecturers, all with PhD degrees. And at the top management, I'm the only female top management, 4 people, the president, 2 vice presidents, 1 secretary general. So sometimes my role will be, you can imagine, the only female meeting all the time with 3 males. So sometimes you have to be the mother kind and trying to bring people together. So these are kind of things that we can also add as women. You can imagine university during COVID. In Abidjan, the disease is scaring people. Universities are closing down, lockdown everywhere. What are we doing for our students? Do we close up and then we go to sleep? We can relax because we are going to get paid anyway because we are public institution. But what about the students? What do we do? What decision should we make? So you have to think quickly, fast, and not just wait for the best decision. You have to just keep trying something. In case it doesn't work, you have to, like I say, lead with agility. You have to adapt and bring people together. Like Dr. Akinemi said, it's like a war. It's like a war. We have to just keep going. We have to make quick changes. Like we decided to move digital because our institution we're doing teaching and learning by contact, like face-to-face teaching. During COVID, what do? We decided to go digital, but students don't have all the necessary equipment like internet connection, even the lecturers. What do? Wait for the government to give to each individual the necessary equipment? Or do you try your best to do something that the student will move forward? So these were like tough decisions. We have to communicate, bring people and really speak the truth. Some students came to me and said, we don't have internet connection. We don't have a laptop. I said, while we wait for those to come, maybe through the ministry, what do? Should we close everything and wait until everything is perfect, then we start digital? Or should we try to fend for ourselves with what we have on our end? So we trained the lecturers, we had meetings with all the deans, came up with all kinds of ideas so that we can save the final semester. So leading that way, I think the students, even students and the lecturers, they understood that we had to move forward. Things will get better, but you cannot wait until you get all the ingredients to move. And I can relate to what Dr. Kenemi and Dr. Toure said. One of my heroes was my father, who was in the military. And he was also a sport coach. So he ran the family as a business, like in the military. What do you do? Every school year, we had a meeting, family meeting, where we set goals. At the end of the school year, we're going to have a meeting also to say what went right and what we need to do for the next school year. So we grew up with that. One of the sentence that he liked to tell the women, he said, your first degree, your husband, this is your first degree. It's like you have to really work hard, get the competencies and try to be the best person that you can be. So even going through the universities, I have to read books on leadership, look for scholarship, fellowship, apply, be proactive, don't wait for things to come to you. So I grew up like being a problem solver. Sometimes you cannot, I like to say, you have to move sometime backward. You start with the results and then move backward. What do we need to do for our students? And then you say, okay, if we need this, this is what we have to do to get this. So it's not like a straight line. You have to move backward, you need to move forward, zigzag, everything, but we need to keep moving and going forward. So I think I'll let the participant ask more specific questions, because we all know that universities are complex organizations. So thinking about complexity, this is very tough being at the university. So Madam Moderator, I think I'll stop here for now, waiting for the participant to ask more specific questions, then I'll be open to answer those. Thank you very much. Merci.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Diallo, and thank you for that invite to participants to ask more questions. And I will reiterate that. I welcome you all to ask more questions. She has spoken to an area that is really crucial across the continent. The whole issue of education. I know countries all over the world are grappling with it, all over the continent. And just hearing her speak so candidly about, some of the situations they're having to face, and just saying, she had to speak the truth. She had to have these difficult conversations head on with the lecturers, with the students. And by doing that, they were able to move forward even without having all their ducks lined up, in a row. She talked about you had to move even without having all the ingredients. So I will leave that to you to ask more specific questions as I welcome Benjamin Kamoye. This is one of my colleagues that I absolutely enjoy working with, a great speaker that I admire and follow. He also has quite a bit that he's doing online. I love his particular talks on reinvention, which are very relevant, especially at this time. We are really needing to reinvent ourselves. I don't know what he's going to be talking about today. Welcome, Benjamin. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Pamela. Appreciate it, and I'm glad to be here. Loving all of you that have joined us today as we talk about strategies for, regaining momentum to thrive in complexity. And I thought about that, even as the speakers that have spoken before me have shared powerfully, and I'm learning a lot even just from what they're saying here. And I went back to thinking about the topic that we're discussing today. There are two things we're saying about these times of crisis that we are all leading in. And specifically, I thought to myself, wow, this is a Herculean task. If you think about the fact that you need to first regain momentum, and that momentum needs to be so huge that will allow you to thrive in the complexity that you are in. And building on the great pointers that my colleagues and other speakers have shared here, I thought about that and I asked myself, what would be that master skill, if you were to call it so, a master skill, that if you peel beyond the layers, what will you find at the core? What is going to help us to regain momentum and have a momentum that will help us to thrive, not just survive, not just kind of coast, but thrive through complexity. And as I was, preparing for this session, I came across a Harvard Business Review article that says surprises are the new normal. Surprises are the new normal. And therefore, resilience is the new skill. If you peel beyond the layers, what would you need to regain momentum that will help you to thrive in complexity? I believe it's resilience. Now, let's define resilience very quickly. The dictionary defines it as the power or ability to return to the original form after being bent, compressed, or stretched. Very quickly again, the power or ability to return to the original form after being bent, compressed, or stretched. That sounds very good. And people say, oh, you're resilient, you've bounced back after whatever it is that has happened. But pause for a moment and think about this. Think about a sponge. If you hold a sponge in your hand and you squeeze it, what happens when you let your hand go? The sponge springs back to normal. And even as we speak about these times, I just want to share this idea that by the time you're coming back to normal, you find that there's a new surprise in your normal. So normal is not good enough. Springing back to normal is good enough. If you see the situations that are, you're grappling with as a leader, you might say resilience is the skill. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And go with me here for a minute. Go with me here. Resilience is a skill. Yes, bounce back. But we want to be able to bounce back to better than normal. So what do you do when you bounce back to normal and then you realize that normal has shifted and you need to bounce back to something better? Resilience as a core skill is required. Now, Dr. James Loher, who is the author of a book called The Powerful Engagement and is the founder of the Johnson & Johnson Human Performance Institute, began to study tennis players. Now, there are many tennis players on the road that are going on tours and they're performing. But one of the things he realized is that the people who took the trophies home year after year were the same ones. And he began to wonder, how come there's so many people on tours in tennis, but the champions remain the same right there at the top? And he began to study this. And he looked at video after video after video. And what he found as the main difference is that the difference between those who were champions, those who were successful, and those who were less successful is what they did in those micro moments when they were in between plays, when they were ready to bounce back into the court and swing again. Those 16 seconds mattered the most. What they did in those 16 seconds mattered the most. And so, long story short, he came up with what was called a 16-second curve. And he said that champions did certain things differently. They were able to bring their heart rate back to normal as much as possible in those 16 seconds, sort of resetting themselves for the next round. While these ones who are less successful, in those 16 seconds, they were looking back at how badly they had played. They were looking back, at how they were almost being defeated. And in those 16 seconds, they created more tension within themselves. And they were not ready to go back into the court. And the champions continued to win. Resilience is the master skill in a world where surprises are the normal. And in order for us to be resilient, friends, this is how I think about it. Every moment by moment, hour by hour, we are faced by situations. We are punched in the face, if you may, by circumstances, situations. You get a call, you see the news, the president makes an address that shifts the entire landscape as you had known it. You are preparing to re-enter the market. Now you need to go and re-strategize again. How do you develop that momentum that will help you to thrive? It is by mastering this master skill of resilience. And it's about going inside, because as Dr. Wale said, the inner game runs the outer game. It's all up here. It's all in here. He talked about war strategies and that the thinkers are the ones who win. He talked about that those who are going to remain in the competitive edge are those who go back inside and regroup. He talked about a coalition of thinkers. If you can develop that externally, that's great. But more importantly, when you're driving in traffic and there's all these thoughts coming to you, you need internally to have a system of resetting yourself in those micro resilience moments. Talk about the 16-second curve in tennis. I don't know what we're going to call it in research, but resetting oneself and saying, okay, this is the reality. How do I step in now? This is what has happened. How do I show up? How do I play to win? How do I bring my resources into the situation that is facing me? We may not expand it in the short time that we have here, but I want to share it with you as something that we want to go and expand and study on and say, how do I develop micro resilience? Because the truth is this, it is not the markers, the decade markers of the punch that hits us like COVID, and it has hit us, and it's a decade marker, and we can look back and say, wow, look at COVID. It's not so much those huge markers that give us the biggest dent. It's those minute by minute moments of the conversations that are going on in our mind about how do we bounce back? How do we step in? When you get out of bed and your feet touch the ground, what's your mental state at that moment? Monitor that, because that in that moment is where micro resilience comes in. Yes, these are the realities, but how do I step in? As you get out of the shower and you pick a call, after that call, you put it down. How do I step into life right now, given what I have just had? Because guess what? The punches are coming in fast and hard. And you also need to have developed a micro resilience that is able to counter the punches as they come in fast and hard. As I summarize, I'll say on the many great thoughts that the other speakers have spoken about, concentrating on this idea that resilience is an inner game, and the inner game runs the outer game. Pam, if you would kindly share an image that we have there, I'd like for us to look at that image, and just for about 1 minute, tell me what you see when you look at that image.
Oh, Ben, sorry. I don't think you shared the image. Would you like to share it from your end? Yes. Sorry.
It's on a different device. Let me see. I'll bring it up as we are doing the Q&A. Let me swivel back to you. Let me swivel back to you. But summarizing the idea of micro resilience as the master strategy to regain our momentum, because we gain it, bit by bit by bit by bit, and that's how momentum builds. It doesn't build in a snap. It builds bit by bit, and that's how we regain that momentum to thrive in complexity. Back to you, Pam.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Benjamin. I think the biggest takeaway, one of the biggest takeaways there is that we are living in a world where surprise is normal. And for us to cope with that, we must develop resilience. That is the master skill that we are looking at. All right, so I've received quite a number of questions in the Q&A. Thank you so much for sending in the questions. Thank you so much, Benjamin. And now we are going to go into the Q&A section. And in fact, I will start with you, Benjamin. We have Doreen Odongo who is asking to Mr. Kamoye, how do I build my resilience as a leader in the face of the challenges we are facing? Maybe
that's a very good question. It's a very good question, and I want to speak to something here. There's two frames of mind, because a lot of our conversations here are around the inner game running the outer game. How you're processing everything internally is going to determine how you step into the situations that demand your attention and you to deploy your best self as a leader in order to bring the desired outcomes. And I'll talk about two things here. Two frames of mind. There's one frame of mind which is playing to win. As situations come to you in life, you either adopt a play to win mind frame or mindset, or a play not to lose mind frame. What's the difference between the two? I'll give you an example quickly so that then we can summarize. I remember when I was a young boy, right there outside at the estate, one of our friends had a bike and I needed to we all wanted to learn how to ride a bike. And so we got on the bike and we started to ride the bike. We ride the bike, and guess what happens? You fall down and you've got bruises on your knees, on your elbows, sometimes on your face. But what do? I get on the bike again and I fall again, more bruises. And I get on the bike again until I knew how to ride the bike. That is a play to win mindset. Like, I've got to master this. I've got to get good at this. I will know how to do this. That's a play to win mindset. Let me give you another example. Maybe most of you in the dating scene during your, young adulthood ages, and boy meets girl, and then something happens, you're hurt in the process. And sometimes there are people who never manage to navigate out of this. They say, I've been hurt so many times, I will never go for coffee dates, I will not allow myself to be hurt. And we close ourselves in and we begin to step into relationships and dating scenarios as, I don't want to be vulnerable because I don't want to get hurt. That is a playing not to lose. You're calibrating your responses not to be hurt. You're calibrating your responses not to lose, not to be embarrassed, not to be rejected. And in the COVID scenario that we are living in right now, you probably received one punch on this side and another one on this side. And you began to burn bridges and said, I will never do that. I will never do that. I will never do that. That is detrimental for a leader. If you begin to say, I will never, I will never, I will never, you're playing not to lose. You're calibrating your response in order for you not to get hurt. And yet, the world we're living in is like that bicycle riding session I was having. I'm like, okay, yes, I got hurt, but how do I step in again, this time making sure I don't fall? What do? I step back on the bike. Am I gonna fall? Oh yes, I fell. But I was calibrating my response to win. I was not calibrating my response not to fall. I don't know whether you're getting the difference. I was not like, oh my goodness, I gotta find a way not to fall here. No, I was like, I've gotta find a way to balance. I've gotta find a way to ride this thing and keep moving. I was not focusing on falling. I was focusing on balancing, and I made it. And I think that the way to build resilience in those micro moments that I just talked about, micro resilience is right now, the blow is on my face. Okay, so what's my response? You are either taking a play to win or a play to lose mind frame. And since the inner game runs the outer game, it will determine how you show up. So step back, evaluate, step into the awareness, and adjust what you need to adjust. I love what Dr. Wale said, that some of last year's strategies are this year's bad strategies. Think, yes, does this serve me or not? And then step in.
Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you, Benjamin. You're definitely on fire right there. I wish I could hear more, but we need to listen to more. And of course, you can visit his website and get to hear more from him. Thank you, Benjamin. Now, the next question is from an anonymous attendee to Dr. Kathryn Toure. And what she or he is asking is, share some of the challenges that you have experienced as a leader during this COVID-19 pandemic, and what solutions have you come up with? Dr. Toure, please take two minutes or so to share. Kindly unmute yourself. Thank you.
While I activated, the idea that one size does not fit all. I mean, this is something that we know about when we design policy. We can't just design a policy or a practice or an innovation or an initiative, assuming that what we design will work for everybody. So very simply, when we had to have a team of 28 working from home, some people already had internet and they already had connectivity, but we had about 7 people where we had to provide extra measures so that they would be on the same level playing field and could telework like everyone else. So it's very small, but if we can integrate that idea of one size does not fit all into our work, I think it makes us better and more inclusive leaders. And as a grant maker, we make funds for research, and some of the other speakers were talking about the need for speed. And actually, the whole world of philanthropy is being looked at right now. I went to a webinar with Dalberg and Common Futures talking about the future of philanthropy. We're not exactly a philanthropist with private money because we get our money from the Parliament of Canada. But there's a whole idea of trusting your partners more, of working with those networks, of being less bureaucratic. We, in 2 quarters, we've gotten like half of our budget out the door to support research at this important time. Normally, we wait until January, February, March to get out a large percentage of our money. So, or of IDRC's money. So this idea of being nimbler, of being agile, of being able to respond to the times and question, do we really need to be as bureaucratic as we're being? Even though some of you who receive funds from IDRC will still find us bureaucratic. We've had to adapt to become more nimbler and more agile and more trusting with our networks of partners. Hope that's helpful. Thanks, Pamela.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Toure. I love that word agile. It keeps coming up. It's become the norm. You know, we all have to be agile and we all have to be out there, you know. That's one of the ways, by the way, that we build resilience, you know, just being agile, getting moving. Thank you so much, Dr. Toure. And I'll go over to Prof. Diallo. There's a question here for you that asks, what innovative solutions have you put in place to ensure that all students and lecturers have the appropriate digital infrastructure and resources to learn? And then there's a second question to it. What permanent change solutions have been within the institution to manage issues like this pandemic crisis in the future? Welcome, Prof.
Thank you very much. Things could never be perfect. You have to how can I call it, to fix it as you go. I don't know any one country that has all the infrastructures and data and sharing to all the students so that everything will be perfect. When the crisis occurred at my institution, we're doing face-to-face teaching. We had exams still to go and the university was locked down. But before that, we knew that we were going to have some problems. So we start making a list of the students with the emails. We have to innovate. Find the emails of all the students, connecting them, having the leader of the students in each classes so that we can communicate. So we put all these different strategies, even exams. We have to do like case studies when students were at home, because we can have, with the COVID, we learn new things. You can still have the infrastructures at your institutions, but during lockdown, what do? The students are at home. The clock is ticking. So you have to do the remote teaching. So even we have exams or classes where lecturers and students on the WhatsApp, they can ask questions just for the course. Students can do peer learning and the lecturers can step in and answer the questions. We have Zoom. It's like we tried any kind of alternative and the students actually can help. They will tell you that we are using Telegram instead of using this. How can we help? But then there are things that, there's so much that one institution can do. The other is above us. Like here, the ministry is looking for ways to subsidize like computers and data for the students. But while waiting for that, what do we do? So as students, we are all making sacrifices. And we know that we are all in Abidjan. My institution is in Abidjan. Most of the students have a mobile phone. They are on WhatsApp. They use Facebook. So sometimes the deans can give some data to students or lecturers. So we all have to be like collectively, we know that we have to make sacrifice until we get things done. We cannot wait and for things to be perfect. But we, at the university, we have some infrastructures, but we're still working on it to make it better for the student and for the staff. They can still complain. Anytime you give, you receive email saying that we don't have this, how can we do this? I said, yes, we are working on it. Be patient. Things like that. You have to sensitize things and say that we need to all be engaged. And really, when we talk about sacrifice, people will calm down and they know that you have no choice. then they understand and give you some time to fix it. So this is how we are, little by little, just getting people to go with what we are, yes, letting them do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prof. As I was listening to you, I'm just reminded of a quote that says that leaders bring the weather. Sounds to me like you're bringing some great weather in your institution.
We are
just
trying.
Being able to calm people down.
Yes.
I admire that. Keep going, and thank you so much for your sharing. Again, agility has come up there, innovation, the ability to flow even with uncertainty, not knowing, not having everything lined up. Thank you so much, Prof. Yeah. And now I have a question here for Dr. Wale. Dr. Wale from Bethlehem, how do you break from old traditions and systems that are attached to doing things the old way?
All right. My late dad was a medical doctor, and there was a joke between us every time. I used to tell him, I said, Dad, if you practice medicine he died in 2018. So I said, if you practice medicine in 2017, using only what you learned in medical school in 1966, you would be a serial killer. Simply because everything has changed. So one of the things that I learned from that is that we should never confuse intelligence with relevance. What we want to be is always relevant. Now, unfortunately, it is very possible to be extremely intelligent and extremely irrelevant. So, for me to get people to move with me and to move it, it's simple. Nobody wants to be a has-been, And one of the things I always also tell, there's a book that I read once, which I actually played. It's called The Startup Nation. All right, The Startup Nation by Dan Senor and Sol Singer. And it was a very interesting analysis. They looked at the nation of Israel and they identified that there was a lot of hostility around it. Okay? Now, but they concluded that Israel thrived not in spite of hostility, but because of hostility. And they did a case study of different nations. Because, why? Now, because they realized we are surrounded by people who don't like us, so we have to be able to defend ourselves. So military technology comes in, not because they wanted to be innovative, but because they had to be. Then we need to learn, we need to be able to feed ourselves, So agricultural innovation came up, not because they were trying to compete with somebody. They were competing with their own existence. And so I think it is very important we all look at this. Look, it's not just enough to come out of this situation alive. You can come out alive and you're maimed and you're crippled, and you want to come out on top, smelling like a rose. And the only way to do that is to say, you know what? I am going to do what it takes to remain relevant. Let me finish with this. The word transformation is a word I am very passionate about. And a lot of organizations and people that I work with, they have transformation agendas, but nothing really happens. And I'll tell you why. I think it's a simple understanding of the English language. When you hear transatlantic, it means across the Atlantic. Trans-Sahara, across. So the word trans means across, from one form to another. Think of the butterfly. It goes through a transformation. The egg the larva, the pupa, and the adult. Unfortunately, what a lot of us call transformation is not a movement from one form to another, but excessive activity within one form. So this situation, this is the way I have looked at this pandemic, is that this is the adversity that has come to induce the discomfort that will force me into a new form. So this pandemic now becomes an ally of transformation. Thank you.
Wow, exciting. Wow, thank you so much. Very many concepts coming up there. You know, I'm seeing many of us are summarizing them on the chat, but standing out the whole idea of intelligence versus resilience. That is so important. And we are coming to an end. Gosh, it's been so interesting. It's been so exciting. I honestly don't want to end, but we've actually come to the end. I'd have loved to give each of these speakers an opportunity to give us their final advice. But seeing our time, I would like to kindly request that just post for us your final advice to anybody who is a leader in this current situation, who is really going through the crisis that we are all going through, and how can they cope and ensure that they're staying on top of their game. So please just give us a word as we come to the closing. Now, before we close, I'd like to just share that award is also really striving to stay on top of their game during this time. And one of the things that I've seen award doing is being so agile to the point that they've been able to continue with their work digitally. They've been able to continue to run their courses digitally. And I just want to take a moment to share some of the courses that they have come up with and that will be coming up soon. They have been able to come up with 2 specific courses. One of them is a virtual course. The other one is an online, is a virtual online course where they will be supporting people in developing their own skills, and we'll be posting this on the website. Please take time to look at those. And then they also have an exciting women leadership series, which will also be coming up. I've seen quite a number of questions that have come up about women in leadership, gender issues, feminine leadership. Please, this is a course that you definitely want to show up for. So we welcome you to that. And before we come to the very end, I would also like to welcome you to give us your feedback on your experience in this webinar. So I'll be posting a link in the chat. Kindly take a moment, it will hardly take you a minute. Kindly take a moment to just fill in that. We are so appreciative of all of you who have logged in, 137 of you. Each one of you is very important to us. We are very appreciative of you. Thank you for the support. And we are wishing you all the best, even as you go through this crisis. We believe that we are going to come out of it, like Dr. Wale says, smelling like a rose. So with this, I'd like to welcome once again, Dr. Wanjiru Kamau Rutenberg to give a vote of thanks and to close for us. And as she's doing that, I will be dropping the link. Please give us your feedback. Welcome, Dr. Kamau.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Pamela. I think all I want to do is echo what I'm seeing in the comments. I'm seeing almost every single person that's posting in the comments, expressing their appreciation for each one of the speakers. Professor Atta Diallo, Dr. Wale, Benjamin, Mr. Benjamin, Dr. Toure, and of course you, Pamela, who has been a fantastic moderator for this session. I think we've all picked up a lot from this session together today. We've talked about feminist men, and we heard Dr. Toure encouraging our brothers to step up as feminist men. We've heard Dr. Wale talking about, reminding us that wars are won by the thinkers. We heard Professor Atta Diallo really talking about the institutional innovation and the need and the opportunity that COVID is presenting us to actually lead our institutions to be innovative institutions. We heard, of course, that from Benjamin, Mr. Kamoye, that we should play to win and not play to not lose. Again, incredible nuggets of information and wisdom. I just want to close by echoing what Pamela has also said. Our word is continuing our work. Our leadership courses continue. This series of webinars, these conversations that we are hosting online is part of that work. In continuing our work and our investment, again, in building up the pipeline of leadership for this continent, again, with that shared vision that we really want agriculture on this continent to be a viable financial venture and not a place of poverty for our folks, especially for our smallholder farmers. So thank you so much for sharing in that vision with us. And thank you for participating in this webinar, because it is, again, our part, our contribution, us playing our part in supporting you as you do your critical work towards this shared vision. So thank you once again. And again, our leadership courses are available online, and Pamela is posting the feedback. Your feedback is going to be so valuable for us as we not only work to improve this webinar series, but also work to improve our online course deliveries. So once again, thank you, and I wish you all a wonderful rest of the week. And again, thanks for the gift of your time and your attention in the last hour and a half. So Pamela, over back to you, I believe.
That's it. You have given I do not want after you, because you have summarized it so well. That's it. Thank you so much to everybody that has attended. And we look forward to the next webinar. There will be another one. So please stay put.
Pamela, do you want to give the Mentimeter link so people can go to www.menti.com and the
Yes, I've dropped it in there.
Yes, so if everyone would just go to the chat again, that feedback is so valuable for us.
Yes, indeed. I have dropped it, and let me just do that again. I've dropped it a number of times. Kindly ensure you give us the feedback.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, and bye, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bonne journée.
Bye.
Bye.
Pamela, just checking, we didn't need to stay online, right? We're free to go?
Oh, yes, you're free to go unless you'd like to give us any feedback.
You know, I thought, Pamela, that it was terrific. I thought that you did really good facilitation. It's difficult to manage and keep your eye on the chat box. You had sent us questions in advance to help us prepare. Each presentation was specific, and I mean, it just helps all of us at this time. It's very, it nourishes the seeds of leadership in all of us. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a great pleasure to have you and to meet you again. Thank you so much.
All right, take care, everybody.
Yes, take care. Bye.
Where is the music? I'm looking for your good music. You played very nice.
Pamela. Hello, Gibson, have you managed?